Don't come in here or I'll shoot you. Stop it.
I'm doing. Why?
No, it's saying extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. It is not incumbent upon me to disprove extraordinary claims of supernatural beings doing miraculous and magical activities. It is incumbent upon the person making those claims to prove their contentions. What I'm bringing forth in my objections is actually a common sense perspective, a scientific evaluation based on what we do have, not what we might have or what may be. I'm not claiming that, for example, the Greek son of God, Hercules, whose life resembles that of Jesus Christ in many ways, is actually a real historical figure. So my burden of proof should not be greater than that of the people who are making their extraordinary claims for supernatural and miraculous beings.
What we don't find is this person who appears as some sort of spectre within that historical tableau called Jesus. He doesn't have a mark at all. Now that is a dilemma for those who believe in him, because on the one hand, he supposedly overturned the world. It turned the world upside down and triggered off this massive movement. But on the other hand, he leaves no trace in the historical record.
People think, oh, why would anyone write a myth? But it's the language of the ancient world. So it's like asking, why do people write science fiction stories? Why did someone make The Matrix? Well, because it's a powerful story which transforms you when you come into contact with it. And it is made up of little motifs which have been taken from all over the place, put together in a new order. Well, that's what myth is in the ancient world. That's what the Jesus story is. Once literalist Christianity had been adopted by the Roman Empire, it was forced almost by its own logic to turn on the ancient mysteries. Because once you've got this idea that one man has come and is literally the Son of God, and you must literally believe in that history to be saved, well, you're almost duty-bound to enforce it. And the tolerance, spiritual tolerance, which marked out the ancient world, ended. And the pagan mysteries were eradicated, the Jews were attacked, and the other forms of Christianity, Gnostic Christianity, were also eradicated and their books burnt. And, you know, in some ways the intellectual head was cut off in the Western world. It collapsed, and the heart was torn out too.
But Christian theologians, scholars, and historians tend to rely on less evidence for proofs of their faith than for the comparative religion and mythology that I'm describing. In other words, they will dun me with requests for evidence for every single detail, as much as I can provide, mountains and mountains of it, in a variety of languages, as far back as you can get to the most modern period. And this is what I do, actually. I've collected as much as I can find from around the world in as many cultures as possible, dating back as far into antiquity as we possess, all the way up to the most modern research, to show these motifs, to show these origins of various ideas that we find in the New Testament. Now, that is the burden of proof that has been requested of my particular perspective of reality, my thesis. And on the other hand, however, in order to convince themselves that 2,000 years ago, the God of the cosmos came to Earth through the womb of a young virgin girl of a particular ethnicity, performed miracles like healing the blind, walking on water, and raising the dead, transfiguring on a mount, calming a storm, being crucified himself, obviously, and resurrecting himself from the dead and ascending into heaven. They require, well, pretty much no proof, no evidence other than the New Testament. A few books, a few hundred pages, that's all they require. And yeah, so that standard is really quite low. There are no physical artifacts from the first century. We don't have any autographs or originals of the Gospels or the epistles. We have no evidence in the literary record of the existence of the canonical Gospels as we have them before the end of the 2nd century. They're not quoted verbatim anywhere. And before that, they don't appear in the historical record. Nobody mentions them. We have no evidence showing that they really were written by the people in whose names they are presented. We don't even really have any evidence that those particular individuals, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, actually lived as they're depicted in the New Testament. In fact, we barely have evidence that St. Paul lived. The stories that are told about him